My name is Naomi Reed, and I've spent my entire life being the independent one, the daughter who never needed help. While my sister was handed everything, I built my success from nothing. I thought I had accepted it, until the day they crossed the line, they gave her a company while pretending I didn't exist. That was their first mistake. Thinking I would stay silent? That was their last. My entire life, I had been told that I was strong. Naomi doesn't need our help. She always figures things out on her own. That was my parents' favorite excuse. It was what they told themselves every time they wrote a check for Madison's tuition, but told me to take out loans. Every time they covered her rent while I worked 2 jobs just to stay afloat. Every time they threw her extravagant birthday parties while mine were little more than an afterthought. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I didn't need them. And for a long time, I believed it. Until the day they made it painfully clear just how little I had ever meant to them. It started with a phone call from my father. His voice was casual, almost cheerful. "Just wanted to share some exciting news. Your mother and I finished paying off Madison's business loans today. She's officially debt-free." I stopped breathing for a second. I wasn't even sure I had heard him right. "You paid off all of Madison's loans?" I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. "Of course," he said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "We wanted to give her a clean slate as she starts this new chapter. You know how stressful it is running a business." I knew better than anyone. Because unlike Madison, I had built my own company from scratch. I had spent over a decade working brutal hours, sacrificing sleep, friendships, relationships, everything, to create something for myself, and I had done it without a single dollar from them. "Did you ever think about helping me?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. A pause. "Naomi, you've always been so independent," my mother chimed in, as if that was supposed to be a compliment. "We knew you didn't need our help." There it was. The same excuse, the same casual dismissal of everything I had been through. I should have been used to it by now, but something about this time felt different. Maybe because this wasn't just about money. This was about acknowledgement. It was about respect. And they had just made it clear once and for all that I would never have either. And then came the real slap in the face. "Oh, and don't forget to please reply for the party," my mother added brightly. "Party? Yes, we're throwing a celebration for Madison this Saturday at the Oakwood Grand Hotel. Just a little event to mark the beginning of her journey as CEO. I felt like the room was spinning. "CEO? Oh, right, we forgot to mention." My father chuckled. "We bought her a company last month, just a small investment to help her get started." They bought her a company, just like that. A golden ticket, handed over without hesitation. Meanwhile, I had clawed my way up from nothing, and they hadn't lifted a finger to help me. My grip on the phone tightened, and I assume this party is to celebrate this massive achievement? Of course, everyone will be there. Investors, executives, the press. It's going to be huge. We're so proud of her. Not a word about me. Not a single mention of the fact that I had built something on my own. "You're coming, right?" my mother pressed. I swallowed down the burning in my throat. Oh, I wouldn't miss it for the world. And I meant it, because by the time that party was over, they would never forget who they had underestimated. I didn't come to the party to celebrate Madison. I came to prove a point, that they had underestimated the wrong person. As I pulled up to the Oakwood Grand Hotel, a fleet of luxury cars lined the entrance. Guests, dressed in their finest, strolled through the glass doors where golden lights spilled onto the sidewalk. This wasn't just a party, it was a spectacle. A carefully orchestrated event designed to showcase Madison's so-called success. I stepped out of my car, adjusting the sleek black dress I had chosen for tonight. Understated, elegant, powerful. Inside, the ballroom was dazzling. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, tables adorned with elaborate floral arrangements, and waiters glided between guests offering glasses of champagne. The air buzzed with conversations, the clinking of glasses, and the hum of shallow laughter. At the center of it all, standing on a raised platform, was Madison. She looked effortlessly polished, her golden hair cascading in soft waves over her designer gown. In her hand, a glass of wine she hadn't earned. Beside her, our parents beamed with pride, as if they had raised some kind of prodigy. "Ladies and gentlemen," my father's voice boomed through the microphone, "tonight we celebrate a truly remarkable woman. Our daughter, Madison Reed, the new CEO of Reed Enterprises." A round of applause erupted. The cameras flashed. Madison gave a graceful, rehearsed smile. And me? I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching. They didn't see me. They never had. Before I continue this story, I want to connect with all of you, my incredible viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. I know you might be watching this alone, but I want you to remember, wherever you are, you're not alone, because right now, I'm here, sharing this story with you. I swirled the wine in my glass, waiting. It didn't take long. And now, my father continued, I ask you all to raise your glasses to Madison, an inspiration, a hard worker, and a true visionary. I almost laughed. Hard worker? Visionary? Did they really believe she had earned any of this? As the applause rang out, I placed my glass on the nearest table and stepped forward. The moment I had been waiting for had arrived. Then a voice rang out from behind me. Excuse me, someone said, but I believe there's a far more important announcement to be made tonight. The room stilled. Every head turned toward the woman standing near the entrance. Vivian Carter. She stood poised, commanding attention in a deep red power suit, a small, knowing smile curving on her lips. There is someone here tonight, she continued, whose achievements have gone unnoticed for far too long. But I believe it's time for that to change. My parents stiffened. Madison sighed, clearly irritated. Vivian turned to me. Naomi Reed, she said, her voice steady, is not only a businesswoman, she is a force. A woman who built a company from nothing and turned it into an empire. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Eyes darted toward me, whispers spreading like wildfire. And tonight, Vivian continued, I am proud to announce that Carter Investments is officially investing $50 million into her company, positioning it as one of the fastest growing startups of the year. Gasps echoed across the ballroom. Cameras flashed. My parents stood frozen. Madison, the sister who had been handed her success, looked at me in pure disbelief. And me? I simply smiled, lifting my glass. Now, I said smoothly, I believe it's time for my toast. A stunned silence settled over the room. For the first time in my life, they were looking at me, not as the independent one, not as the afterthought, but as someone who had just shifted the entire balance of power in a single moment. Vivian placed a steady hand on my shoulder, her presence commanding the attention of every investor, executive, and reporter in the room. $50 million, she repeated, letting the words sink in. Not gifted, not handed over, earned, because that's what Naomi does. She builds things. She doesn't wait for success to be given to her. She takes it. More murmurs spread. Heads turned. People who had been circling around Madison like moths to a flame were now shifting toward me. The energy in the room had changed. Madison was no longer the star of the night. My father cleared his throat, stepping forward with an uneasy smile. That's quite an announcement, he said, his voice forced and tight. Of course, we're very proud of both our daughters. Both. A word they had rarely used when it came to me. I took my time picking up my champagne glass, watching as my mother's expression flickered between discomfort and something else, fear, because she knew. They all did. The narrative had shifted, and there was no turning it back. Proud? I echoed, raising an eyebrow. That's interesting, because if I recall correctly, when I was building my company, I don't remember a single word of encouragement. I do, however, remember a lot of, you'll figure it out, Naomi, and you don't need our help, Naomi. My father let out a stiff laugh, the kind people use when they're desperately trying to maintain control. Now, he said. There's no need to dwell on the past. Tonight is about celebrating Madison's success. Madison's success, I interrupted, tilting my head. Oh, you mean the company you bought for her? A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Madison's face burned red. Excuse me? She hissed, her voice low. I turned to her, my expression calm, calculated. Did I get that wrong? I asked, feigning innocence. Because from what I understand, Reed Enterprises wasn't something you built, wasn't something you fought for. It was something handed to you, just like everything else in your life. She took a step forward, lowering her voice. I worked hard for this. Did you? I asked, my voice just loud enough for the guests nearby to hear, because I seemed to remember paying my own way through college, while you had private tutors and a full ride courtesy of mom and dad. I seem to remember working 2 jobs to afford rent, while you got a luxury apartment covered in full. I seem to remember spending years growing a company from the ground up, while you woke up one morning and found a multi-million-dollar business with your name on the paperwork. The whispers were growing. People were starting to look at Madison differently. The admiration in their eyes was fading, replaced with doubt. For the first time, she had to defend herself. So what? She snapped, her voice shaking slightly. Are you jealous? Is that what this is about? I laughed softly. Jealous? I repeated. Tell me, Madison, if you had truly earned any of this, why do you look so terrified right now? Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. I didn't wait for an answer. I turned back to my father. Funny, I mused. You said tonight was about celebrating success. But now I'm wondering, were you celebrating Madison's success or your own ability to buy it for her? He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because for the first time in his life, there was no excuse that could cover this up. No justification that could make it look like they had ever believed in me the way they had believed in her. The weight of the moment pressed into every corner of the room. Finally, my mother spoke. Naomi, she said, her voice softer than before, we never meant to make you feel invisible, I finished for her, smiling coolly. Unworthy? Like I had to work twice as hard just to be considered half as valuable? Because trust me, Mom, you didn't make me feel that way. You made sure of it. Silence. I took a slow sip of champagne, savoring the way the bubbles fizzed on my tongue before setting the glass down. But that's okay, I said, turning to Vivian, who was watching the entire thing unfold with a knowing smirk. Because unlike Madison, I don't need anyone to hand me my success. I make my own. Vivian raised her glass. To women who build their own legacies. A moment of hesitation. Then, one by one, people started turning toward me, lifting their glasses in agreement. Investors. Executives. Journalists. The same people who had come here tonight to celebrate Madison were now seeing me, the daughter they had ignored for too long. The first toast went up, then another, and just like that, the entire room was celebrating me. Madison stormed off, her heels clicking angrily against the marble floor. My parents remained frozen in place, the weight of their choices finally sinking in. But I didn't watch them. I had spent years watching them, waiting for their validation, hoping for their approval. Tonight, I didn't need it. Because tonight, they finally had to watch me. As the night wound down, the weight of everything that had happened settled in. The power shift was undeniable. Madison had walked into this party expecting to be the center of attention, but she had walked out defeated. My parents had spent their entire lives shaping her into their ideal daughter, only to watch her legacy crumble in the span of a single evening. I should have felt victorious. And in many ways, I did. But there was also something else. Finality. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for my entire life. Not their validation, not their praise, but proof that I never needed it to begin with. As guests trickled out, I stayed behind, lingering by the large bay windows overlooking the city skyline. The lights of downtown glowed below, a sea of movement and endless opportunity. Somewhere out there, my company, my success, was thriving, not because of luck, not because of a handout, but because I had built it with my own hands. A voice cut through my thoughts. Naomi. I turned. Madison stood a few feet away, arms crossed, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her elbow. The anger from earlier had faded, replaced by something else. Resignation. I hope you're happy, she said, her tone sharp but lacking conviction. You completely humiliated me tonight. I studied her for a moment. No, Madison, I said, my voice steady. I didn't humiliate you. I just stopped letting you take credit for things you never earned. She exhaled, shaking her head. You act like this is my fault, like I asked for any of this. But you know what? You had your chance too. You could have played along, let them help you, but no, you had to go and be independent. You had to prove a point. I laughed under my breath. You really don't get it, do you? I asked. They never gave me a chance. They never wanted to. They saw me as capable, so they let me struggle, while they saw you as someone worth investing in. She looked away, jaw tight. And you let them, I continued. You could have said something. You could have told them I deserved a shot too, but you didn't, because deep down you liked being the favorite. Her lips parted slightly, but she had no argument, because she knew I was right. Finally, she sighed. So what now? You've won. Are we just done? I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel resentment. I just felt done. I don't need to win against you, Madison, I said simply. Because we were never competing, you were handed a shortcut. I took the long way, but I like where I ended up. I turned to leave, but then hesitated. For what it's worth, I added, I don't hate you, but I'm done making myself small so you can feel bigger. I walked past her, not waiting for a reply. I found my parents near the exit, speaking in hushed tones, their faces tight with worry. For the first time, they weren't worried about Madison. They were worried about me, about the fact that they had spent their whole lives betting on the wrong horse, and now they were scrambling to make sense of it. Naomi, my father started as I approached. No, I interrupted, my voice firm but calm. You don't get to fix this with a few empty words. My mother's eyes glistened. We didn't mean to hurt you, but you did, I said simply, over and over again. And the worst part, you never even noticed. They both fell silent. I exhaled, the weight of years of disappointment leaving my chest. I spent so much of my life thinking I had to earn your approval, I continued, that if I worked hard enough, succeeded big enough, you'd finally see me. But I don't need that anymore. My father swallowed, nodding stiffly. My mother wiped at the corner of her eye. So what happens now? She asked. Now? I smiled, stepping back. Now I go live my life. And for the first time, I do it on my own terms. I turned and walked out of the ballroom without looking back. The night air was crisp as I stepped outside, the city buzzing around me. A car was waiting at the curb, and as I slid into the back seat, my phone vibrated. A message from Vivian: "This is only the beginning. See you Monday. We have a legacy to build." I smiled, locking my phone and leaning back against the seat. For years, I had been the daughter they overlooked, the one they counted out. Now, I was the one they could never ignore. This story isn't just about family favoritism. It's about self-worth, resilience, and breaking free from the need for validation. Too often, we chase approval from people who will never truly see us, but sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is walk away and succeed on our own terms. Naomi's story is a reminder that success is even sweeter when you earn it yourself. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a 2 in the comments if you liked this story, or a 7 if it wasn't for you. Let's see where everyone stands. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss more powerful stories like this. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to share more with you soon.